Welcome to the 5D Shift podcast with Openhand. It's where we take a higher dimensional perspective of the tumultuous changes that are happening on the planet right now, and we work to make a multidimensional sense of exactly what is going on. It's only by aligning with these grand shifts that we can truly make sense of what's happening and how we can help that energy mediate through our lives into all of the various circumstances of how we're living and being. In this episode, I want to look specifically about how the Ascension Timeline is accelerating. The torus of the planet is re-energizing, and that's having a massive impact on us internally and through society. You're seeing a tremendous emergence, uprising, upwelling of consciousness, and it's tremendously optimistic to behold and witness. This is what I'd like to look at. Come and join me. Be right there in a moment or two.
We've entered a pivotal moment in Earth's history. People in all walks of life are waking up and challenging the 3D shadow system. They're turning away from the fake stream, going inwards and igniting the passion of their soul. We're shifting consciousness into 5D. What does that mean exactly? How and when will it happen? Openhand is a higher dimensional ascended master consciousness working to illuminate the pathway forwards through the stormy transition. But this is never about telling you the truth. It's about offering essential insights into the shift, tools, meditations, and spiritual practice so you can realize your own truth. Because ascension to 5D is something only you can actualize for yourself. Get involved, explore, inquire, expand, liberate your soul.
A tremendous shift of consciousness is ongoing, which is transforming the Earth into 5, 6, and 7D. It's in line with changes that are happening in the galaxy and the solar system too. And it's essential that we grasp, understand exactly what is going on, because it's impacting every single aspect of our lives, both in our personal, private lives, relationships, how we live and work, but also in society. So we need to see how the energy itself is impacting everything so we can equalize with it, normalize in it, and therefore harness the greatest possible energy of change and transformation, how we can grow through it, how we can integrate soul through it. That's really what it's all about. And that's essential then that we set our orientation in any given day in that direction. How can I grow as a soul? How can I change in these humongous situations, transformations that are ongoing? And so find the next highest version of myself in any given situation or circumstance in my life. That's how I must be working now. And aligning with these grand galactic processes that are going on. The Ascension Timeline is speeding up. We can feel that, you sense it, you sense the feeling of urgency in life situations right now, and an urgency to really transform inwardly and transform how I'm living in the external. So the Earth is accelerating. You can see that in the actual spin is increasing in speed. It may only be small. However, since it is having a big impact on the magnetic field, and since we're biomagnetic beings, it impacts our being too. But also, the Earth's torus is accelerating. The spin of the Earth, the toroidal field that encompasses or forms the actual structure of the various dimensional aspects of the planet. We all have a torus, each sentient life form, from a flower to us, through the chakras, the toroidal field, the vortex goes through the chakras, that connects into the Earth's torus, connects into the torus of the solar system and into the galaxy. This is what we might call the flower of life. It's being depicted by the ancients way back in the early ages, the early stages of civilization, even engraved on some of the structures in ancient Egypt, of course, as well. We have just, an Openhand group has just returned from a pilgrimage down the Nile. And to me, this is highly significant and highly relevant to today's situation. Of course, there was an ancient civilization there, advanced civilization, using technology, very sophisticated technology, which probably we don't even have today. You can see it in the way the pyramids were built. They encode the mathematical figure of pi, the speed of light. They're orientated to the axes, the main axes of the Earth. The dimensions, the ratio of the height of the pyramids, the main pyramid to the circumference of the base is exactly the same as the height from the center of the Earth to the poles in ratio with the circumference of the Earth. I mean, that's extraordinary. How do they know those dimensions? How could they build something so remarkable with apparently very basic tools? Several of our group have regressed into the actual creation of the pyramids, and that highly sophisticated technology such as sound and light were used to cut these blocks, these huge blocks, for example, in the Sphinx temple, elevate them into place, and then actually fuse them together so you can't even pass a piece of paper between them. But also how the crystalline structure was aligned in order to create what we might call a stargate, to bring energies, bring different StarBeing groups in and connect them into the Earth's field so that they could have an influence upon it. This is one of the key things that we really need to grasp, is that we are not, as humanity, acting alone in this great shift that is going on around us. We never have been. Humanity never has been. The genetics have been hybridized and modified from very early times, and also particularly when we get to Homo sapiens around 200,000, 250,000 years ago, in that kind of window. You can clearly see how sudden and rapid genetic changes were made, sealed in place by a chromosome fusion that took original humans with 48 chromosomes to Homo sapiens in 46 chromosomes. That was not one single mutation as required for Darwin's theory. It's probably dozens, because when you look at the engineering of how the chromosomes were joined through telomeres, then you have to have several changes happening in a breeding male and a breeding female at the same time in the same place. Didn't happen by chance. So the evidence points to the fact that hybridization has happened to fit within a system of control. That's what we can see and judge that has happened over the aeons, over the centuries, over thousands of years. People are waking up to this. So people are waking up to the fact that these different influences are coming in and even impacting or coming in through the DNA. The DNA was configured to receive those various influences. So you have this tremendous intervention that's been going on by various StarBeing nations, some with a benevolent intent to liberate humanity, to bring humanity into the galactic family of light, so to speak, but others wishing to manipulate, manage, control, hybridize the DNA so as to enslave humanity. That's what's happened. That's what's coming to light. What we need to realize is that this is an ancient dynamic through the galaxy. Transhumanism, for example, is not something that is purely new on the planet right now with the likes of SpaceX, Neuralink, and all of this that's going on. It's something that's gone back through the aeons, and many are carrying that transhumanistic karma here, where the humanoid form has been blended with technology. That's something that goes way back in our karma and through that of the solar system and the galaxy. So it's nothing new, and something we must start to work with in order to unravel out of. Crucial in that unraveling, realigning process is reconciliation between the various star-being nations that instigated the intervention in the first place. For example, the Annunaki and the Greys, who are the ancient alien architects, we could say, that configured, for example, the grand structures of the pyramids, of that civilization, that society, even what we might call Atlantis. For me, that was more an epoch rather than a specific place on the planet. But I would say that Egypt was the zenith of that, was the kind of central point of that when it reached its conclusion, its greatest, if you like, greatest advancement. It was intended to support society, to make society abundant, and it indeed achieved that, but at what cost? There was a collectivized consciousness that was created under what we can call the raw energy that pulled those souls in and made them subservient to a particular societal structure, enslaved within it to some degree. There would have been advantages to it in terms of being looked after and supported resource-wise, but a loss of sovereignty. And I'm saying this from direct experience of people who have regressed through past lives in that collective, but then emerged out. I'm also saying it in relation to something which is prevalent on the planet still right now, and something we must be aware of, that it's very easy to get sucked into a collectivized singular viewpoint rather than taking or forming one's own truth at a soul level from what you can feel is right internally. Now, a lot of this particular construct, and even those that have followed on into today's civilization, are held in place by technology. They were, in those days, through 4D implanted technology, both in the physical human being, which still exists today and are being removed in work like what we're doing here at Openhand, but also within the geographical locations like the pyramids and like the Valley of the Kings, like the Philae temple, like, for example, the different megaliths that you see Abu Simbel, for example, which is one of the places that we visited. And so what you have is, you have this technology which is controlling the Earth's toroidal field and slowing it down, basically, so that the energy can be harnessed from it and applied into these various systems, this society that existed in those times. This is, generally how it was done. And so the emergence of human consciousness, this is a massive impact on humanity, which we really need to address because it really impacts everything we do, how we live and work. And removal of that technology is being crucial to the emergence of humanity, the human soul from that intervention. And so one of the great opportunities was to work with those star-being groups that had instigated this original intervention. Now, it would be easy to polarize. It would be easy to judge. It would be easy to condemn. That is happening a great deal on the planet right now in society and in alternative circles. We must try to understand the multidimensional scope of what is really going on. Because the moment we judge, the moment we condemn and project at particular groups, for example, that perpetuates the struggle, it perpetuates the division, it perpetuates the disharmony both on the planet and further afield. What we really need to be doing is undertaking reconciliation. It's a big theme, it's a huge theme, it's coming up right now. And reconciliation needs to happen between these various star-being nations around the earth that are influencing the earth in different ways. And I can say, fortunately, and very optimistically, that process has begun. You have, for example, reconciliation between reptilian energies and Pleiadian energies. These two have played out the dynamic, the classic dynamic of oppressor and victim throughout, a long history. One oppressing the reptilian energy, oppressing the natural joy and love, unconditionally accepting, and often a kind of vulnerability of the Pleiadian, sometimes often a kind of naivety that doesn't consider or believe that another would try to control or undermine it. And a reptilian energy that needs to consume and really take ownership of, that wants to do that as a way of fulfilling itself, its various needs, whether they be physical or emotional. Now, of course, that's pretty full on and heinous if you're on the back end of that experience, if you're on the back end of being controlled. But ultimately, what needs to happen, rather than making these beings wrong and castigating and demonizing, because that only perpetuates the struggle, they go into fight and flight mode. What we need to do is show them a different way, show them a way of surrendering and aligning with the natural flow of the universe with grace, but not weakness. Yes, standing strong. Yes, offering your viewpoint. And you may see this, of course, in relationship dynamics where certain energies, a distorted divine masculine, for example, is trying to suppress and take ownership of the divine feminine and control it. But you also see, on the other hand, the kind of victim mentality that a distorted divine feminine might go into. And so you actually create a codependency of these two energies. In which case, which one is wrong? Are they not just both holding each other in place? And it's crucial also to understand that they're playing out a dynamic in the universe. That of, ultimately, if I take a Pleiadian look at it, I could say, well, I have no control over the universe. The universe is going to flow in a certain direction, and it's crucial that I surrender to that. However, at the same time, the invitation is, how can you fully express yourself on that wave of universal energy? How can you dance and ride that wave and fully express yourself? I guess you could say that's an impetus and motivation of the reptilian energy. The crucial thing is to embrace and look at these different energies that are inside of us, because we all embody them, not least because the DNA has been hybridized with them through the aeons. So we're going to be influenced by that. And each frequency is animating a particular frequency of soul. The crucial thing is to take ownership of that. Take ownership of the distortions you see within yourself, and then work to realign them. How do you know if you're running a distortion? Because it feels uncomfortable. It feels tight. You create repetitive patterns that don't serve you. And it's important then not to blame the other, but ask the most essential question: why did I create it in the first place? Because by the law of attraction, the natural law of attraction, you did. You draw the circumstances to you in order to create the reflections that trigger inside that you can now work with. So that's a classic dynamic between reptilian and Pleiadian energy. We could take that as a kind of, something to point towards. And what I can also say is, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing to witness, is Pleiadian star souls are taking ownership, are working with that dynamic and gaining sovereignty through it as a result. And the Pleiadian frequency which exists within us, within all of us. And also I can, optimistically say and feel through witnessing and observation that the reptilian energies are now realigning too. The coherency of that group here on the planet has broken down. That was highly synchronistic when, for example, Queen Elizabeth passed on. You could see that had a breaking down impact on that relationship dynamic that's going on, because there was some kind of interrelation going on there between the various systems of society, of control within society. You can see a breaking down of that energy, and you can see a desire, a yearning to realign, because they can feel the humongous changes going on around the planet and through the system, through the solar system. So there's a desire, the coherency is broken down, and there's a desire in them to realign, and plenty, I can confidently report, I've experienced it, are coming back into the universal fold, the brother sisterhood of light, if you like. They're coming back more to their draconian roots, their initial ancestry, if you like, who are also working here to help restore the torus and level the playing field in society. That's happening too. I'm witnessing that change is going on. So again, not to castigate, not to judge, the reptilian energy has been a gross distortion of a coherent draconian energy, which has an ultimately, and at its core, a benevolence to it, which is about restoring the natural torus, and they're here to do that, and that process is now ongoing. You also have a dynamic going on with the Annunaki, another key one that's happening at this time. So they were the original architects of what we can call the Matrix, and then also, for me, there's a strong relationship of that with Atlantis and what that was really all about. They were the architects of that. They were the architects of the structures throughout ancient Egypt, or many of them, and they were designed to control the energy field. And you can see that all around the planet happening, or having happened. Now, back in the movement to galactic convergence in 2012, I experienced, again in Egypt, that a significant portion of that group, the Anunnaki group, was breaking away, wished to evolve out of the intervention and start to, yes, extract from it and take a different path which is more commensurate and aligned with the natural toroidal flow, the natural flow of the universe. At that point, they began to call themselves, or this particular breakaway group began to call themselves the Anu. I since lost touch with them, but they have started to reconnect through various facilitator groups that we've had in Avebury, for example, in recent years. And again, these particular two pilgrimages in Egypt through ancient Atlantis. What I'm experiencing is they're starting to help reverse engineer the technology that they put in. This is highly optimistic and exciting that is happening, because it means it can happen at a much faster rate. It can transform the energy field around us in a much more positive way and a more rapid way. So you're going to see changes happening much faster, to the degree that is actually being undertaken. And I feel like that is happening right now, which is why I do believe that you're getting an emergence of soul consciousness happening, an uprising on the planet, which we're witnessing in the pushback against draconian, excessive measures in China, for example, by the population rising up. You're seeing it in Iran too, with the divine feminine stating her sovereignty. That's how I see it. And pushing back again against controlling measures which suppresses their expression and doesn't give the freedom to the women. And they're rising up against that. It's being pushed back brutally, but nevertheless, they're standing strong, and it's a wonderful thing to behold. At some point on the path, you realize there is no going back. No matter what it costs, even if it leads to your death, then there is only going forwards. Okay, there's understanding, there's a degree of empathy, of course, with what's happened previously, but there is no going back. And you can feel that now, especially in these two uprisings, I would say, in China and Iran. That bodes well. You know, when the truckers' protest happened in Canada and was then suppressed and dissipated, well, I knew at that time you could break up the convoys maybe, but you wouldn't break up the emergence of soul consciousness. It was bound to reappear and reemerge in different places on the planet in different guises, and that is happening, fortunately, blessedly, right now. So the Torus is accelerating. It's causing a rising of consciousness. Technology that originally suppressed human consciousness on the planet is being removed. And so you've got a tremendous opening going on. And that's what's happening right now. And that's something we can benefit from, we can ride, we can feel, providing we tune in internally and start to unpack, unwind the way we have been plugged into this matrix of control that's existed for hundreds of thousands of years, going right back to the inception of Homo sapiens. Now, one thing is utterly crucial to every single individual engaging in this shift, and that is not to demonize, not to polarize, not to judge the various things that you see happening on the planet right now. To give why? Because each soul is working through gray areas of karma. Each soul is working to find correct alignment. You cannot judge unconsciousness for being unconscious. It's counterproductive, and it's even self-derailing. Let's look at the impact of judgment and how to move beyond that and work with it. I'd like to pick a particular example, and that's not to point at a specific individual. Elon Musk, I'd like to talk about, and what he's doing with Twitter. It's important to understand that different beings are influenced in different ways by different frequencies. And I don't wish to judge or point a finger at a particular individual, but where that individual is having a big impact in society, I think it's important to look at generalized themes, not specific themes about that person, because that person isn't here to defend themselves or explain why they're doing a particular thing. But we can look at themes and movements within society. So on the one hand, you could look at SpaceX. You could look at what it's doing by installing the various satellites. I can't even mention the particular EMF frequency because I'd get censored by it. I'm probably being censored by it already anyway, in a huge degree. But the various satellites that are being installed by SpaceX in our atmosphere, our outer atmosphere, in order to project this high-tech, sophisticated metaverse onto the planet, which is the next level of control. Yes, that is going on. Yes, it's highly detrimental, I would say, to life on the planet and to the human form. So on the one hand, you could say that's incredibly negative, and I witness, see that, agree with that. But on the other, You have the transformation of Twitter into Twitter 2. You're already seeing how the old censored accounts are being reactivated, or many of them. There's also talk of, and censored material that impacted the last election, for example, and drove it in a particular way, is now being made public. So this is, it's been spoken of as removing, censorship, of having more free speech. Well, that's what's being muted. That's what's being muted. That's what's being said is happening. There's also talk of integrating a cryptocurrency, a true cryptocurrency, into a payment system on Twitter. Now, if that happens, that's a major advantage to the emergence of human consciousness and a breaking down of control of the old shadow state within the fiat currency system. So that potentially is if it happens, it's a tremendously positive step. So, how do you weigh up these different influences and different expressions coming through this particular person, this particular movement? Well, to me, there's influence coming through different frequencies of the soul. So you've got, for example, the control system of, this high-tech agenda, this metaverse, which feels very old Annunaki to me. But also you've got this kind of quirky kind of energy, which is a little self-conscious, a little self-deprecating at times, and very altruistic. That's very Arcturian energy. And so you've got different frequencies coming through the soul, which pull in different ways. So, to describe someone as a white hat or a Trojan, they could actually be being both, or the soul is emerging out of the control system to express benevolence. This is a common theme through history, where a soul has incarnated into a particular convoluted situation, been a part of the intervention, but then emerged out and undertaking benevolent action on part of the shift. I would say the goddess Isis was very much in this kind of position, for example, and something we experienced on consecutive pilgrimages down the Nile. And that because we felt that being, we felt the regret, the sorrow, the grief at having been a part of a controlling system. But then rediscovering the full connection to the source and yearning to transform society, and actually undertook that in a benevolent way. So to polarize and demonize in that way is probably to undermine the very positive, benevolent changes which can happen. Yes, we must stand strong in what we feel to be injustice. Yes, we must call and illuminate, these various challenges, densities, brutality that's going on the planet. Yes, we must stand firm. We must call it. We must look it in the eyes and see it for what it is and call it for what it is. But there must be, what I'm saying, is a line between that and judging, condemning, demonizing. Look, when some oppressor does something to me, which even could be brutalizes, right? At the very least, injustice or brutalizes or controls in society, they're only doing that to themselves. They're only controlling themselves. They're only causing suffering within their own being. If I can look at that person in the eyes and feel whatever impact there is inside of me because of that brutality, but transcend it and emerge out and look at the other with grace, understanding, doesn't mean to say agreement, but at least understanding and empathy. If I can do that, then my soul is going to grow, become more coherent. I am going to gain from that situation. And even to the extent that I might then even have pity for the other, because they're the ones that are going to suffer because of their actions that are not commensurate or aligned with the universe. Who now is the victim in such a situation? If I'm growing, if you're growing, if we're forging soul through all of this and radiating the non-judgmental resonance of connection with the universe, the natural flow of the torus, and re-emergence into the galactic family of light. If we do this, if we have the courage, the heart to do this, what's going to happen is for every aligned expression you make in any given situation where you're being judged, projected at, if for every aligned resonance you make at a soul level inside, that's like an antenna communicating out into the field. It's communicating to the various StarBeing nations that are plugged into this reality and trying to influence it either benevolently or malevolently. You're actually sending a frequency of realignment, that you are a part of the shift and that you are a proponent of it, and that you're channeling it, moving it through you. That's going to gather, that's going to ripple, it's going to strengthen. And so more and more people are going to start feeling the accurate, aligned energies of the shift. This is crucial right now. We need not to polarize, not to demonize, but can we bring these wayward souls on board? That's essential. And, both in our private, personal lives, but also in society and further afield. Let's discern by actions and not judge or demonize. That's utterly crucial. Otherwise, we only perpetuate the warring factions which have been going on in the galaxy for some considerable time. It's time, high time, we brought an end to that as much as we possibly can. And just to conclude on that point, I'm now seeing the fragmentation of these various groups, which is a good thing because you're breaking down that collective consciousness which was moving and controlling in a particular way. So the Annunaki, that coherency breaking down, the Anu evolving. There still are some other groups, plenty of other groups that are probably resisting. I can feel that, maybe involved in this kind of metaverse agenda. I can see the same in the reptilians. I can feel them breaking down and plenty realigning and others being reclaimed back to Draco. That is going on. I'm seeing the coherency of the Greys diminishing to some degree, but there is a lot of work that needs to be ongoing by energy workers, facilitators, and each individual person working internally to find truth and a higher expression of being in order to resonate this frequency of realignment and reconciliation. That's going on in the field right now. It's highly, highly exciting, optimistic, okay, cautiously so. A leopard doesn't change its spots overnight. It's going to take time, it's going to take work, and each one of us working within our own personal lives to find the highest possible truth. And then as you do that, you are aligning with the torus. This is the ultimate judge of how things move, shape, and create. The torus itself. You can only try to control and slow it down, which is what the intervention has done. But now with the shift of energy of the galaxy, the solar system, and the planet, there will be no controlling how the Earth now shifts and moves and realigns within those grand cycles. Nothing is going to stop that. No technology is big enough or more advanced enough to stop that. It's going to happen. It's in, the heightened, accelerated phase of that happening now. So the only sensible thing to do is start to feel the torus. It feels like activated Kundalini. To me, it's one and the same thing, is to feel the active Kundalini and that accelerating the torus. And so you're feeling the strong flow of soul energy coming through you, which wants to break down the judgments of the old. To be clear, when you judge something, you're forming a fixed opinion of it. When you form a fixed opinion, you're defining an identity inside in relation to what you're judging. That's an anchor in the flow. It's a false identity. And the Torus, as it accelerates, will challenge that and break it down internally. Better to work with it internally, to take ownership of what's coming up in your life, the triggering, the reactivity, work to unpack, unwind it, and then you integrate soul through, which is connecting into the Torus in you, and that's connecting into the various cycles of the earth, the sun, and the galaxy. With that in mind, I'd like to conclude with a brief meditation. Now, this meditation, I can only offer a brief insight into how to work with that here and now. But if you resonate with what I'm sharing and with the meditation, then come and get involved with the open hand work. And we do a lot of this kind of thing, reactivating the Torus. So close your eyes and bring your attention to the breath. You're inhaling up, exhaling down. Inhaling up, exhaling down. And to begin with, inhaling in and out through the mouth. And then put your attention at the back of the mouth, in the throat chakra. So you feel the resonance in the back of the throat. And then close the mouth, breathe through the nose, but now feel the resonance. It's more contained. Feel the expansion. You might feel it up through the head like a kind of timelessness, a timeless connection. A timeless connection of belonging. And then expanding down through the heart and into the lower chakras and the base. And as you are breathing now, you're beginning to transcend the breath and merely feel, or say merely, you're feeling the consciousness beyond the breath. So as you inhale, the movement of consciousness comes up from the base, through the heart, through the throat, through the head, right up above the crown. Then hold the breath. And breathe this lighter energy down through the crown, through the head, through the throat, the heart, all the way through the body to the base. Now as you inhale up, the sense of an anti-clockwise spin upwards, just a sense of it. You might visualize it, but you also might feel it as a swaying feeling. So inhale up with an anti-clockwise spin, the sense of that. Maybe just a gentle swaying. And as you exhale down, a clockwise spin all the way to the base. This is activating Kundalini, but also the toroidal spin itself, one and the same thing in the open hand approach. This is the Torus that's activating, reactivating in the planet, in the earth, solar system, galaxy, strengthening in the galaxy. Now, I want you to contemplate a situation, circumstance in your life where there is confusion, judgment by yourself or toward yourself by another or a group in society. Contemplate that. Contemplate the circumstances of it. See the imagery of it in your mind's eye. But above all, now feel the reactivity to it inside. Where is it? Where's the tightness? Is it maybe the sacrum, emotional plane, solar plexus, mental plane, some kind of conditioning which is going on, some kind of judgment? Maybe it's in the heart. Or the throat, you don't feel like you can speak out, you can speak your truth. Maybe the third eye, you're being repressed in expressing who you really are. Feel it. Now in the Openhand work, we'd express into it. But for now, just want you to feel the tightness of it. And ask the question, well, why did I create it? Why did you create it? What outcome do you need? What are you afraid of doing or undertaking? What are you afraid will happen if you express your truth? Why do you need the other to be a certain way? Maybe they need to express their karma. Why do you need respect or validation from another? Think about these things, because at a soul level and connected to the Torus, to the One, you don't need any of those things. So can you let go of the attachment? Can you let go of needing the situation to go a certain way, needing the other to be a certain way, needing respect or validation? Can you let that go? Ultimate validation comes only from within, and by that I mean self-acceptance, self-realization, self-actualization. Feel that inside now and break down this old consciousness. Feel the sense of presence of the One in you. Settle. It's like you drop back into that sacred ground. It's like it's behind the eyes, in the chakra, and you're in that place, or you're in a particular sequence of chakras. You might be in one in particular. Heart or the third eye. Drop into that and feel the power of it, not power over, but power with the universe. And now from that place, visualize, feel, sense, stepping forwards with that energy. It's calm, it's graceful, it's strong, it's coherent, it's understanding, it's empathizing, but it's not accepting anything goes. It's going to express itself. Feel that. How will it act differently now in that situation? And because you're being different, because you're acting differently, the situation must transform. It will, because it is formed, shaped of consciousness. And now you're infusing a different consciousness, a more aligned one than you were before. Have faith, courage, belief that this can now transform your reality in a more aligned, harmonious way. In a very basic, simple few minutes, This is how we can learn to process the various changes, challenges that are happening on the planet right now. They are tumultuous, they are humongous, but a huge opportunity to grow and emerge from the convolutions of the past. Reconciliation is beginning to happen. That's going to accelerate. I do believe it can. I'm very optimistic for that. And that's going to ripple through society. It's going to help an emergence of new iterations of consciousness, new constructs that are more just and beneficial to a wider swathe of the population. Yes, we have to stand strong against injustice. Yes, we need to do that. Yes, we need to illuminate distortion, but also to embody, express this new energy coming through. We can only transform the planet by a shift of consciousness, by an elevation of consciousness. And that must come by each working internally and realigning consciousness within ourselves. The Ascension Timeline is speeding up. There's every incentive, every motivation, every impetus to take this work on. If you feel inspired by anything that you've heard in this podcast, then come and explore the work of Openhand, explore Openhand Web and our Ascension Academy, and come along to our work, either a 3-hour afternoon session with me on Zoom, which we call Ascension Exchanges, or get involved in a workshop or a retreat. It's transforming lives and the field across the planet. So if you resonate, come and get involved. We would very much love to appreciate to host you in what we're undertaking and the work we're performing on the planet right now. I wish you well. Namaste.
Get involved, explore, inquire, expand, liberate your soul.